Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Raymond. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic Programs here at 19 Washington Square North. Welcome to NYU Abu Dhabi in New York, the home of NYU Abu Dhabi, here on the square. We're very pleased to have Professor Mark Jenkinson delivering a talk today. Just before I introduce him, a few notes about the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute and the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute in New York. Since its inception in 2009, the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute in Abu Dhabi and New York has provided a platform exchange of ideas about the newest developments in research and scholarship across disciplines. The Institute in New York offers Washington Square community opportunities to hear experts talk about their research and its societal relevance, technological and cultural impact, and the importance for the world at large, ranging from artistic and creative innovations to issues of equity, inclusion, and health, public health rather, and environmental sustainability, among others. The Institute is unparalleled in the Gulf region, and we're pleased to offer programming and extend the Institute's research here at 19 Washington Square North. A little bit about our speaker, Professor Mark Jenkinson. He's an arts professor and has been teaching in photography and imaging department at NYU since 1984. He attended the Visual Studies workshop in SUNY Buffalo from 1972 to 74 and is a graduate of Cooper Union. In addition to his teaching career, he was working freelance photographer. Over the past 35 years, he has had well over 35,000 photographs published in virtually every major magazine in the world, including Vogue, Time, GQ, Vanity Fair, and Town and Country, to name a few. Over the course of his magazine career, he has photographed hundreds of stories on everything from fashion to photojournalism. He has written 3 textbooks on photographic practice, techniques, and careers, Photography Essentials, published in 2008, the Portrait Photography course, published in 2016, and Careers in Photography, Finding Your True Path, published in 2018. His fine art photography has been exhibited at Light Gallery, James Danziger, Daniel Wolf Gallery, and many others. He is the recipient of numerous awards for his professional work from the Society of Publication Designers, Graphics, the Society of American Graphic Designers, the American Vision Award, etc. It's a great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Professor Mark Jenkinson. Thank you so much.
So I looked at the guest list and I realized this might be kind of boring for a lot of you because this is mostly my audience is usually other photographers. But I'll show you some pictures. And I'm going to talk a little bit. I have an artist statement that I'm not going to read because I'm going to do it backwards. First, I want to talk about why it's lost in the U.A.E. And I have a history of getting lost. I love getting lost. When I was a kid, I would ride my bike to the point of getting lost. Then I would hitchhike when I was in high school, started hitchhiking to get lost. I ride motorcycles every weekend with the intent of getting lost. And I've eventually been able to make a living at it. This was an article that I did on traveling through Canada with that guy, with basically no plan except to go get a beer. Then I became a Condé Nast Traveler photographer. And, again, my job was kind of to go get lost. And I had a fantastic editor at Condé Nast Traveler who, some of you might know, a guy named Harold Evans. And he was like, just go, see what you find. So this was a story that I did, traveling Death Highway, Highway 10 through the United States. That was actually, if you've seen the movie with Frances McDormand on the 3 billboards, those are the actual 3 billboards. And I also have a fascination with crappy cities. So I started working in Las Vegas. And I've been documenting Las Vegas for over 40 years, the whole transition from Las Vegas, from being a city that was really built for by the mafia, who had no idea how to build a city. So when I was asked to go to Abu Dhabi, I was really psyched to go to Dubai, which I think is a really fascinating city because you got to remember that nothing in the UAE. Can we turn off that light? That's really. It's a city that kind of sprung up out of nowhere. I mean, basically nothing in the UAE. When you travel through the Emirates, nothing existed. Pretty much nothing existed 40 years earlier. It's all brand new. Trying to find anything old in the U.A.E. is really difficult. So I was asked to go teach photography at NYU Abu Dhabi, and there were some mistakes in my naturalization. So I was stuck on campus for a long time, like 5 weeks. But you know, I'm going to photograph wherever I'm going to be. So eventually I figured out that there was a break in the wall and I could escape and go photograph basically just within walking distance of the NYU campus, this is actually pretty typical. That was a highway that was built, led nowhere. No construction went on for the whole time I was there. And there is construction everywhere you are. So I just kind of wandered around Saudiyat Island for as much as I could until finally I was able to travel. And the first place I went to was Dubai. So this is on the road to Dubai. I don't know how I'm going to fill out an hour and a half. You guys are going to have to ask questions. Like really, just go ahead and
travel.
Interrupt.
Are you in a car or?
Yeah, so yeah, getting around is, and this is one of the things I think is kind of interesting about the U.A.E. It gets a lot of flack for being so car centric. But once you're there, you realize that if you're going to build a country from scratch, the first thing you have to do is build roads, right? So if you're going to build buildings, you need roads for trucks to go on and things like that. So this is one of the kind of primary criticisms of the U.A.E., but they're really taking care of it. So yeah, I got in a car and went. It's 100 miles from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, so you can basically get there in an hour because the speed limit's 100 miles an hour. So, so one of the things I was interested in was, I started my career as an architectural photographer. One of the things I was really interested in was the crappy architecture. So, you know, and Dubai gets a lot of criticism about things like the two imitation Chrysler buildings and the imitation Tower of London. And I've worked as an architectural photographer for a long time, but I eventually came to realize that that was a pretty unfair criticism. It's like criticizing a teenager for being a teenager. You know, it's a brand new country. It's figuring it all out of the way. The Burj Khalifa is a pretty interesting building. And one of the things that I read about the Burj Khalifa before I left was that there is no sewage system. So basically every day, some 60 trucks come up and empty all of the sewage from the Burj Khalifa and then deposit it somewhere else. Well, yeah, you can criticize that, but you know, they're working it out as they go along. And I eventually really came to love the Burj Khalifa. I think it's a fantastic building. It's a Skidmore, Owing and Merrill building. And it's a building that struts. Like the whole city of Dubai struts. So I got pretty pretty enamored with it. Yeah, a lot of these photographs are for photographers, so I'm not sure how fascinating they're going to be for other people. The other problem, of course, is how do you house everybody? I mean, you're building this city, so you have these kind of odd architectural anomalies, and just the constant, unending building of everything, every construction, and promotion of housing.
Is this the interior of the mall?
What?
Is this a mall interior or where is
No,
this?
this is actually underneath the highway. I do spend a lot of time in malls, so you'll see. Because malls, so one of the best things, I became friends, especially with the film department. And there's kind of a tradition of going camping in the desert. And man, if anybody in Abu Dhabi ever asks you to go camping with them, go, because it's a super special experience to like go spend an evening out in the desert. And I became totally fixated on spending evenings in the desert. And because so many of the faculty are Arabic, it's, well, first of all, they can't drink otherwise, so it was a great place to socialize. But it was also just a fantastic way to get to know the other faculty and just spend time in an amazing landscape. I got really hooked on the desert. Sheikh Zayed is super important. He basically, to Emirates, he is George Washington, Martin Luther King, and FDR all rolled into one. He took that family, I mean, you got to remember this is family money. And he took that family money, built a free healthcare system, built the country, built all of the infrastructure. There's a mosque literally on every block in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So at first, you know, you're at least being an American, you think, oh my God, this is like an authoritarian country, you know, where Sharia law is still on the books. But eventually I would become like a huge fan of the royal family, because it really, though he started it, it kind of continues. I think he died the day that I left. So this is an example of like one of the really fantastic buildings in Dubai. This is the Museum of the Future. And it's a torus-shaped building, 3D printed. Well, actually, I should say panels of it are 3D printed. The script is all Arabic script written by of quotes from the Sheikh, from different Sheikh than Sheikh Zayed. I think it's Sheikh Maktoum. There are 5 different sheikhs. If you don't know how the country's arranged, there's 5 emirates. Each emirate is ruled by a different royal family. But because Abu Dhabi is the biggest, the president of the country is always from Abu Dhabi. But this is in Dubai, which is the 2nd largest emirate. So I'm going to explain sort of, again, kind of thought maybe I'd be talking to more photographers, like how some of these pictures are made. So I purposely left this one slightly uncropped because this is 3 different pictures that have been merged together. And as I was shooting more and more stuff, actually the picture before that, is also 4 different pictures merged together. As I was shooting more and more stuff, I got really interested in how Photoshop would just kind of construct these things randomly. And in photography, we have a thing called the limit frame. So the limit frame is literally like the frame of the camera, the limit of what the lens will show, right? So, but the limit frame is kind of arbitrary because really the lens shows a circular image. So I decided to not worry about the limit frame in some pictures, and just use the technology to kind of put things to collage things together. So this is the interior of the Museum of the Future. And the limit frame is just like taking, 15 pictures and just merging them together into a shape that is
Mark, you
made
have a
sense.
question? Here's a question.
What type of equipment do you use when you're?
So I have a, so actually, that's a really good question. I use a special, again, I'm trained as an architectural photographer. So I use these special tilt shift lenses that allow me to point the camera one way, but then move the cropping around within that. This one is just probably, I do have a camera though that's like my carry-around camera, and this is just my carry-around camera. It's a Fuji X-Pro 3. This is a hologram in the Museum of the Future. So, it's funny, I only noticed this as I came up, but I was thinking about the torus shape of the, so that's actually of the Museum of the Future. And then I noticed how often that shape comes out in the landscape. And I became a real expert on how dunes are formed. So the other thing that happened a lot was I would go out to shoot, and the roads in the U.A.E. are often unprotected against wind. So the dunes would just form over the roads and I would get stranded, which I kind of liked. So I would just end up driving down the road, and then suddenly I was just like stuck. You ain't going anymore. You got a gallon of water in the car and you're going to spend the night in the car unless some camel farmer comes around and like digs you out. And the camel farmers were fantastic about doing that kind of thing. They were amazing. This is a fossilized dune.
Is that? Where is it?
This is in an area called U.A.E, which became one of my favorite places to go. But I do have to explain that it's illegal to photograph candid photography in the U.A.E. So some of these pictures are actually illegal. But my rule kind of was that if people were expatriates, I didn't care. Because Europeans and Indians are very used to being photographed when they're out in public. But I tried to be respectful when I was photographing Emiratis, with this exception. So, this is an area called Musafa, which is an outskirt of Dubai, Abu Dhabi. And basically it's like our heaven. It's like junk shops, and it's also where you go to get your license and stuff. A lot of the immigrant workers live there. And the other thing about the country is, it's kind of interesting, is probably 80% of the people you meet are actually Indian. You almost never come across Emiratis. Indian, Pakistani, because of all the workers who came in. And I have to say, I'm sure, have any of you heard stories about the abuse of workers. So kind of a thing of the past. I met many people from other countries. There are definitely places like Qatar where that's still going on, but it's pretty much a thing of the past. And that's what I mean about like the country is basically in its teenage years. One of the things I kind of thought about a lot with this was in photography, one of the things we all do, it's like a rite of passage, is the Great American Road Trip, where we travel across country. And, you know, famous Robert Frank the Americans, Carl Watkins, 19th century landscape photographers. But really the first Great American Road Trip is by a guy named Alexis de Tocqueville, who is a French political scientist who came to the US to study ostensibly penal systems, but ended up writing a book, traveling throughout the country and writing a very unflinching, but ultimately optimistic view of America. And that was, America was, I think, 51 years old when that happened. And when I was here, it was the country was basically 50 years old. So I kind of think of it as a country that's going through very much the same kind of growing pains as America, where it's figuring things out. It's figuring out how to be part of the world while still retaining its national identity, while still welcoming immigrants. And yet, you know, there's a limit to your upward mobility because you're not a royal, and you'll never be president of the country. That's never going to happen. But there is amazing upward mobility for a lot of the immigrant population. I met a man. So one of the things I would do is I'd pick up hitchhikers as a way to just get to meet people. And I picked up this hitchhiker who was Indian, and he had a flat tire. And Mark, so where are you from? Oh, he came over as one of the immigrant workers, and now he owns a company that supplies water to all of the oil wells. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing, because I'm trying to photograph from an oil well, which is totally illegal. And he's like, oh, you're going the wrong way. Anyway, but yeah, he had risen, to a very upper middle class position. This is another portrait of the Sheikh. This is a endurance horse race. So one night I'm driving back from the desert and I see some bright lights in the distance, and I'm attracted like a moth to the flame. And this is the Sheikh Zayed traditional festival. And again, I'm always looking for what's authentic in the country. I made several trips back and forth to this place because it's amazing. It's basically like a county fair. Yeah. So this is a picture that I would never, because I assumed that little girl was was an expatriate, and then she started speaking Arabic, and I would probably never show this picture outside of this room. But this is a picture where I did have a policewoman shadowing me for quite a while. And because I'm taking pictures of random kids, right? Not cool. And then finally I just kind of like invited her over and I show her the back of the camera, and she's like, oh, lovely. So it was all fine. So this is a call to prayers at the Sheikh Zayed Festival. So everybody, it's kind of an amazing experience because it's this fair that's going on, and all of a sudden there's call to prayers and the place empties out and everybody goes to the mosque, and I'm the only person standing there, the only like European in the whole place. Back in Dubai. So this is the Palm Jumeirah, which is one of the man-made islands. Interesting place. I've got maybe other pictures that are better. So, you know, in this case, I will just go up and ask the person, if I can photograph them. Nobody ever had a problem with it, but strictly speaking, it's not okay. One day I was heading off to somewhere else and, oh my God, all these camels. And we came to love camels so much. My wife and I were traveling and find random camels by the side of the road and just go over and they like wrap their necks around you and hug you. It's like, if I could own a camel, if I could have brought a camel back with me, I would have brought a camel back with me because they are just delightful animals, and they taste delicious. So, yeah, this is a camel farm.
What is that yellow?
Hmm?
Is the yellow box?
Say it again.
I'm sorry, what is the yellow box in the middle?
Is everything right?
Yellow box in the middle. What is it?
It's a shelter for where the camel, for them to take shelter from the sun. I got deep into the dunes. I could have made this whole thing just dunes. Emiratis are absolutely obsessed with cars. So Ferrari World was definitely a place that I had to go. Yeah, off-road, lots of off-road vehicles. I actually found a group on Instagram that had pictures of them all driving through the dunes, and I just DM'd them and asked them if I could go with them someday. Just met up with 6 random guys from Dubai to like go watch them drive cars in the dunes. Oh, I thought it eliminated that one because you can't see it at all, but that's a bunch of trees at night. Yeah, those lights are killing all of these pictures.
Could you tell us more about that previous photo?
What?
Could you tell us more about that previous photo? Like what time
the
of day
stars?
was it? Where were you?
Again, I might have been stranded when I shot this. You know, I would just drive and then I would say 50% of the time I would just drive until I got stuck. And then it was like, that's where I'm going to take pictures today or tonight. You know, you carry a shovel in the car and a gallon of water and just drive until you get stuck. And
Is
I
that sunset?
truly loved doing that.
Is that sunset?
No, that's probably, well, no. Actually, I can almost guarantee you that that is an oil field out there. So that's like light pollution. Sandstorm, which get really, really bad. This is the Louvre on Sabiat Island. And again, not really a picture that I legally was allowed to take. I did sort of develop strategies for shooting that were, actually, this is maybe not a bad example. My first trip to Dubai was 2 days after Russia invaded Ukraine. You couldn't walk down the street and hear any language but Russian. Every wealthy family from Russia decided to go to Dubai in order to avoid being drafted or any of that stuff. So, you know, but in Dubai, like the idea of like very traditional dress, versus the way Westerners dress, which is in some places in the country very frowned upon. But I mean, you don't show up to get your driver's license in shorts or a short sleeve shirt. But and Dubai is a lot more liberal than Abu Dhabi. So actually, this is like an example. The camera is on a tripod. And I'm basically just photographing this thing without the girl. And then the girl appears and then she does that thing and it's like, okay, but you got to click the shutter when that happens. You know, but that's sort of a strategy that I do a lot, where I basically just set the camera up and then wait for something to happen within that composition. A mosque with the Burj Khalifa. So I also teach a fashion photography class, and so I'm always really aware of like how women are being depicted in fashion photography, and especially because I teach that class in Paris. There's a particular way that you tend to see women in Paris, and there's a particular way that you tend to see women in American fashion magazines. And I started really paying attention to the way women were being portrayed in advertisements in the Emirates. And I found it really striking, like how very direct gazes, very strong, just very, very strong portraits in a way that you almost never see in Europe or in America. This is in a town called Hatta, which is one of my absolute favorite places that I went. If you ever have a chance to go to the Emirates, you absolutely have to go to Hatta. It's one of the most authentic towns in the country. And there's a beautiful lake there that you can kayak on, and it's mountainous. It's like no place else in the country. Malls are a big deal. Malls, the U.A.E. could not exist without air conditioning. So a lot of culture, you know, as much as America, all of our malls are dying. At a certain point in the U.A.E., if you're out in the sun, especially later in the spring, you're dying if you're not in a mall. So I spent a lot of time in malls, and also because that's where that was one of the most authentic places in the country, in terms of the modern U.A.E. So lots of time in malls. That Ferrari world. Again, like some of these are just like random things that I appreciate as a photographer, but probably don't mean much to anybody else. I would get challenged a lot in malls, because working with a serious camera in a mall, I would usually get to spend an hour or two, and then at a certain point, a guard would come along and tell me I couldn't photograph anymore. I'm like, okay, no problem. This is pretty amazing mall with a really just this gigantic aquarium, and I wish I couldn't afford to go. You could actually scuba dive in there with the fish. Actually, there's another place that I didn't include in this presentation, which is the world's deepest dive pool. I think it's 160 feet deep. And there's a whole little village under there that you can go down, and there's a whole little hidden city that you can explore. So another totally illegal picture. I got obsessed with like photographing oil fields. So you can't photograph anything that's owned by the oil company, ADNOC. And what you do is you do the same thing in the US. If you want to find out where Area 51 is, you look at Google Earth, and then you look at all the places you can't, that they're not going to show you, right? So basically you look at the U.A.E. on a Google Earth, and all the places that are blurred out, you know that those are oil fields. So I would just head off to look at this. I was very unsuccessful in all of my first tries, but the Indian guy that I picked up hitchhiking, it's like, I have a pass to get into the oil fields. And he's like, I'll give you my pass. I'm like, dude, it's got your picture and you're Indian. I'm not going to get into the oil fields with your pass. And oh my God, could you imagine what they would do to both of us if we did that? No, I'm not going to do it. But at one point I decided to go to the Saudi border. And when I was coming back, I realized that way off in the distance, this is another time I got totally stuck, way off in the distance, I've done this in the United States too. There's a light. And I'm like, damn, that's an oil field. There's a dirt road. Okay, I'm going to take that dirt road. My wife and I did this at Area 51 as well. So you go as far as you can until suddenly helicopters start circling. But yeah, so I found this one place where I could actually photograph an oil rig. Huge percentage of the population, huge. I wish I had statistics, probably 50%, at least 50%. South Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi. So there's a place called Bollywood, which is like totally an amusement park dedicated to Bollywood movies. This is a camel racing track, which I never got to see. Camel racing happens in the wintertime because of the heat, and very, very early in the morning. And because I was under quarantine at that point, so I couldn't get off campus. But this is a gallery of the sheikhs racing camels. So this is another way where I think the U.A.E. really has done a terrific job. So in the past, they would actually bring young boys from India and Pakistan, very, very small, the smaller the better, as jockeys to become camel jockeys. And they got a lot of flack for that. So now what they use is actually hard to see, but they actually use mechanical jockeys. So the owner of the camel drives behind the camels with remote control. So they'll have 8 camels going off on a racetrack, and then 8 SUVs following behind them with people running Nintendo switches to control the mechanical jockey on the back of it. These are actually racing camels from the Sheikh's collection. Anytime I saw a camel, couldn't stop. You couldn't resist. Again, photographing in public. So I'm on the subway. So you develop these strategies like photograph people in reflections or obscured. This is the Louvre, which is another fantastic building. I mean, architecturally, it's just one of the most stunning buildings I've ever photographed. You actually can approach by boat. So that's actually a dock that you can just pull your boat up, and if you're going to an opening, you can arrive by boat and get off. Another illegal picture, because this is the back of a gas station. And again, gas stations are all owned by the National Oil Company, therefore no photography at a gas station. So this is also in Hatta, and I think one of the things I thought was kind of interesting was how the royal family, I can't say this for certainty, and I'd be very interested to do a deeper dive into this, but the way the royal families are depicted in various parts of the country, because like that picture of Sheikh Zayed, that same picture has been altered photographically through Photoshop ever so slightly. So sometimes he's very stern and dour. It's all the same portrait. Sometimes he looks very avuncular and nice, but they're all the same pictures. So the way that the royal families are depicted in various things is very interesting. And I don't know exactly why that is, but as you travel through the country. Just gas station. This is the Grand Mosque, which is, again, you think, oh, it's going to be a old building. No, it's a brand new building. It's just completed, I think, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And it's spectacular. Lots of social media. That's another thing that's really interesting. It's like, when I went to the endurance horse race, they would not let me in. So banquet, huge banquet. Everybody's in white robes. All the royals are there. I've got cameras with me. I'm not allowed. But I could go in with my iPhone. I'm like, really? Like, but being a stickler for being a photographer as I am, I would not shoot with an iPhone. So don't do that. Portraits of Sheikh Zayed, again, like, are ubiquitous. Dubai. Dunes. I think you're going to see a lot of dunes from here. Dunes. But they are amazing. I mean, they're just amazing. It just stupefies me. How they form, and after a while you get to know, you can kind of predict like how the formations are going according to how the wind's going and stuff. I shot this one for Deb Willis. Where is Deb? Nope. Oh, no, Deb stepped out. Shot this for Deb Willis's son, because he does this whole thing with frames within frames. Another camel farm on the border of Saudi Arabia. So this is a truck stop on the border of Saudi Arabia, and I think I didn't include that picture. So again, call to prayers. So, you're driving down the road and all of a sudden it's call to prayers, and every truck will leave the road. Every truck will find the nearest mosque and go to prayers. Also on the Saudi border, which I kind of was curious about this one, about why there are no faces predicted. But basically, as you get closer to Saudi Arabia, it becomes more and more traditional. It becomes much more seeing women in full burqas. It becomes much more traditional. See, I told you I was going to have a way to use all this time. So bicycle messenger. And this is actually a hammock. Those lights are killing me, man. Can we turn those off? Because awesome. Because one of my favorite pictures is coming up, and we really need it to be dark. This is actually the backside of the tallest dune in the world, Talmud. And actually, I'll show you this. Go back one more. Oh, really? What happened? I lost it. I can't touch it. Okay. This is a salt lake, it's near Elaine, which is one of the big Instagram picture spots in the whole country. Everybody goes there to photograph it.
Where are you standing?
Huh?
Where are you standing?
On the other side, because it looks like it's really big in everybody's Instagram pictures. It's really not a whole lot bigger than this room. So, and yeah, so it looks really pretty in pictures, so everybody goes there, but it's, and in fairness, when we were there, it might have been kind of down. It might be bigger at other times in the year.
It's Instagram pretty is what you're
Hmm?
saying.
Sorry?
It's Instagram pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Here it is. It's coming up. So these are the pits for a sand dune climb up the tallest dune in the world, Tama Reed. And this is where you would, if you were participating in the event, where you would like stage up your car. And this is the last picture of the whole bunch. And another one where I was basically heading somewhere else and then got stuck. So 10 hours of looking at that and photographing it. So I will say that there's a little bit of photographic trickery so normally you would not want to photograph someplace where where there was such a bright light. And in fact, I couldn't see any of that when I was actually there until the moon went down. And then I saw the Milky Way. But I kept waiting for this light to go off. This is another camel farm shelter. And finally the light would not go off. So I grabbed every plastic bag that I had in my car and covered every light that was there in order to get the light to be dim enough that I could still shoot the sky. So that's it. That's all I got.